Okay, and let me explain these gnomon brushes to you. This is for vehicle design, and you can make buildings and other things as well. What I'm doing now is taking one of these brushes, which is set up to create random shapes, and I'm making one scrub across the page just to see if I can find a spaceship or something in there. This one looks more promising than the rest. I'm always trying to get a three-quarter view, but as I recall, this one, and many of them turn out to be side views. I then moved from that gnomon brush to a hard round, in this case a 19 pixel hard round. And what I'm trying to do is just find edges. Just see if something can be developed as an edge, strengthen those edges. Not designing a ship right now. I'm just saying, well, that looks like it's in front of something else. I'll make sure it looks like it's in front of something else. And just keep pushing these things around. I like three-quarter views of spaceships and vehicles and stuff. And what I'll say if you're going to do that is do it in pencil and paper, and then scan it when it's correct. It's very hard to draw perspective drawings in Photoshop unless you can just sort of do it out of your head. And I promise you, you can't right now. It's much better to do it in pencil where you can control things and erase things and put your perspective lines in and see what you're doing. I can draw in perspective in Photoshop, but it's tedious. I'm much faster with a pencil because I can see the end of my pencil and the end of my line at the same time, which you can't really do with the Wacom. Maybe on a Cintiq it might be easier, but it's still problematic. Now I've decided I don't need this lower part, so out it comes. This is speeded up. This demo is probably 125% of normal time, about a quarter speeded up. So it's going to look like I'm incredibly decisive. I am making rapid movements when I can because I have that Control Z button. I can get rid of anything that doesn't work. And again, all I'm doing at this point of the process is just saying, well, that looks like a shape. I'm going to trace this outline, and I'm going to do it as quickly and as decisively as I can so my lines look quick and decisive. That's a big deal. You don't want wiggly lines in a hard surface project. If you do have wiggly lines and funny areas that look rough or bumpy, make a path, go back over them, stroke the path, and make it look more precise. But I'm pretty handy at this point with just getting a decent line about where I want the line, and that's all I'm doing right now. You'll notice the front's starting to look like possibly a cockpit. I don't know what all this stuff in back is, and that's the beauty of Levy's brushes, is because I'm designing something I've never seen before, and even I don't know what it's going to become. This is what I want you to do if you use these brushes. Don't try to draw with the Levy random shape brushes. Just see if you can make something intriguing enough that you feel like you could define it a little bit here and there and make it into something else. So make it into a shape or a vehicle that you like. As I said before, these often turn into silhouette, or not silhouette, side view shapes. And I don't want you to be worried about that. I'm mostly interested that you can create something intriguing. It may not be something that a modeler could follow, but given the fullness of time, I think a modeler with most of these things could work out part of it. And working with a modeler, and you can all model a little bit, if not a lot, you could work this out into a symmetrical craft, one side to the other. I'm making a few cleanup marks and I'm deciding what I want to leave. I do like these transparent overlaps because they do suggest those little, what the Lucas guys called nernies, these little, I don't know what they are. They're scientific, technological, science fiction-y things. We don't know what they do. They're just there and they look cool. I'm finding fins and I'm putting stripes across things and I'm cutting things off to see if I like that shape better. Cutting it down again. If I don't like what's going on, I can undo, or I can just continue to design. The beauty of this right now is I got nothing at stake. I have not spent a lot of time in real time. I'm less than 10 minutes into this drawing, and I already have something that has the potential of being intriguing or interesting. So this is what I want you to do. If you find yourself creating a side view and you didn't want that, don't think you can finish it and then somehow magically transform this into a three-quarter view or even a frontal view. It's not going to work like that. So if you really are determined to do a three-quarter view, you've got two choices at this point. You can take this drawing and use it as a sort of foundation, just the silhouette of it, the side silhouette of a three-quarter drawing all in paper, or just start over with the Levy brushes and wait until you find some randomization of shapes that you can see a three-quarter view in. At this point, for me, I'm just happy if I can make something that looks futuristic, I guess you would say. And you can see me throwing in reflected areas, trying to get this thing to have the sensation of shiny. I've now gone to a bristle brush, which is one of my Reed's Faves brushes that you can always find. I believe it's also in the not the gnomon, the Goros set. I'll show you where it is if you can't remember. It's an easy thing for me to paint with because I know I can control it pretty readily. Now I'm putting a new layer up, as you can see, because I'm not sure what's going to happen. I like what I've done already, and I don't want to mess anything up too horribly. What this allows me to do is to go transparently over what I've done and then erase back if I need to, and I won't be erasing anything that I've already got going. Oftentimes I get this far into a piece and realize I don't have a spaceship, but I have a helmet, or I have a gun, or I have an interesting building, or I can turn this sideways and make it something else altogether, part of a mech or some kind of monster. So even if you feel like not what I had in mind and it's not going to work, ponder it before you just discard it. You know, save it in a file, work in progress, or a file that says this. I think this is something, but I don't know what it is yet. You'll notice every once in a while I'll just put a little circle in. They're just dots there. I put them in because they're so easy to do in Photoshop, and sometimes they help me just get a sense that things are put together. They're manufactured somehow. And all I'm doing now is I'm really honestly, I'm still thinking about shape. I'm still thinking about, is this reflective? Can I put a little shiny spot on it? Sometimes I go a little overboard and have to back off of that. Is it curved where I want it to be curved? Is it looking like it makes a bit of visual sense? I really love, personally, I like two kinds of spaceships. The first kind is shaped like a bullet and has fins on the back, and I still love that spaceship, mostly because I never see it anymore. You see it always back when I was young, because nobody knew what a spaceship did look like, except for the ones that were missiles. So I miss those, and I will draw those from time to time. I think they're fun. The other kind is this kind, which is not bound by gravity. It's not bound by the laws of flight. It's potentially a deep space spaceship, or it's got that magical anti-gravity chamber in it that allows it to maneuver and work in the atmosphere and look like absolutely nothing that we think would ever fly. They're rarely symmetrical when I draw them. They have lots of weird fins and flanges and antenna and points and stuff, and that's because this is all random. The original shape was generated randomly. In the old days, you used to go through a lot of changes. Here I am dropping a layer now. I liked what happened, so I dropped it all back down. And you do this frequently. I do not want you making vehicles with 15 layers on them, or 13, or 8, 4, 5, and then if you like what you see, drop it down, commit to it, and then work back over it. I'm down on one layer now, so I can use a color brush, a brush set to color, and start putting some colors in this to see if it enhances my idea of what I think I should be doing. In this case, blue, and I'm willing to bet that the secondary color that I'll use will be a complement of blue. We'll wait and see on that. And I'm just filling in. All my values stay the same. Everything stays where it's supposed to be. And I'm just seeing how things go. here I go looking for a secondary color. And you bet it's orange. And I do this on most things, whether it's a creature or a human. Whatever my primary color is, my secondary color is going to be a middle to low opacity of the complement of that primary color, that first color that I use. Don't want to get confused here. When I say primary, I did happen to use blue here, but I could have used green. That would have been my primary or first color. And this is my second color. You can see how working with warm color and a cool color, I do get depth. I do get sensations of things beginning to occur, and there's some really pretty elements going on in this, some things I quite like. A little dodge brush to bring out some metallic effect, a color dodge in this case. It's orange, and the more I go over it, the more bright and metallic and interesting looking in some cases it can be for me. So that's all this is. I'm just dodging a few things, but not with the dodge tool. I'm actually got a color dodge on my paintbrush here. Normally for me, if something is working, I try it here, I try it there, I put it in a lot of places. And I don't think that's uncommon, especially for a young artist. I'm back to a normal brush, and then you'll use it too much, and then you back off of it a little bit. So I'm back to normal, and the beauty of this, having used a color brush, I now have pretty much every color I need for this image is already in the picture. So now I'm just making selections from the object itself, and I'm picking and choosing, and I'm blending, and I'm working at about a 60% opacity here, and I'm just trying things. I'm smoothing things out. I'm trying to bring a little order to the confusion now, and as I go, and again, I'm probably, I don't know, nearly 20 minutes into the piece now, it's starting to make a little bit more sense where I go, yeah, I think I can do this. This looks like a flap. This looks like it should be round. I'm going to do something to emphasize the curve or the roundness of this kind of shape. Experimenting with white, experimenting with orange, experimenting with blues, and of course blacks, just to try to give a little more logic to the piece. In this case, I found myself painting this thing that's sticking out, this sort of intake, odd intake that's moving, diagonally towards us a little bit. Here we are at the second part of this demo. I had left it for a while. I'd done a few things in between, not a lot, and now I'm thinking about background. And look at me blazing along, so decisive. He never makes a mistake. A really interesting brush that I wanted to try, and so I did, a textural brush, and I'm working with a split complement, kind of an ochre color. And as I recall, this isn't what it ends up to be. I wasn't completely satisfied. This is not quite double speed now, and don't be, the problem I have with speeding these things up, I want you to get through. I don't want you to fall asleep while you're watching them, so they're speeded up. But it is, it's disingenuous. It makes you feel like you should be working at a certain speed, and it ain't that way. You're not going to work this fast. You can see I've quickly put a filter on this, a fine edges filter, and it was kind of cool. Again, it gave me all these little nirnies. That was a push of a button. I just made a duplicate of my layer where the ship was, and I put a filter on it, and now I'm erasing back through where I didn't want all of those little bright lined elements, but I wanted some of them. And now I'm on a layer above, filling in, again, trying to make a little more sense out of everything, sometimes simplifying, sometimes making more complicated. Wherever I have an edge, I want there to be a distinct edge, a lot of contrast in edges between one element and another element, either brightening things up or darkening things down. And even though it looks like I'm confidently drawing something that's right there in my head. Even at this point, I'm not. I'm experimenting. I'm trying textures. I'm looking around for brushes that are either interesting or brushes that are familiar, which I can control. And I'm still grabbing color out of the element, out of the picture itself. And I'm still trying to define and give a little more logic to everything that's going on. Here, putting a ridge on the view screen there, the windshield, I guess you'd call it. Here I am just outlining some things that are not clear enough in my mind, and putting just highlights and painted areas and smoothing things out, fixing things a little bit. At this point, the ship looks pretty complex, and it looks dimensional. It is a side view, but you know, for this class, that's not the end of the world. That's fine. If you do a side view though, make it a cool one. You know, make it like, oh, I've never seen that before. I'm not familiar with that. You may come in and say, Reed, I've seen this spaceship you made before, which would be like, wow, great, because I never had. And if I'm designing like someone that you're familiar with, then I'm a good designer. Here I am just putting a little distressing on it, just getting some edges that maybe are more worn, things that look like they're a little used. Sometimes I like to put chips in the paint or scratches or burn blasts on them, and all those things are really easy to do in Photoshop, and go ahead and do them. It's fun. This should be a fun process for you, and it should not be a mystery to you how to make things look shiny. I've got other demos for making things shiny that you've seen, and if you haven't, I can show you where they are. And getting things to look shiny is extremely helpful, and it's not difficult. Trying textures, trying seams and ridges, and experimenting with color, putting things on. I like to put things like don't step here, which you see on airplanes and jet planes and arrows, and so I'll make these little insignia and just sort of suggest that it's like not completely manufactured. Yeah, in other words, a lot of spaceships and things that I see, you know, they're like, apparently everything is self-explanatory on them. But when you look at real planes and real boats and real weaponry and stuff, there's all kinds of insignia and writing and don't touch this and don't stand there. You look at a jet plane, there's big signs that say, do not stand behind this because it's bad. In this case, I put an arrow that says, this is the step here, or don't step here. You know, this is not a step. You see that on airplanes all the time. So that's what I'm doing. I'm trying now. I'm telling myself a story. I'm applying a few things to it. I'm asking myself if things look better or worse. I would guess that I'm probably an hour into this in real time, at least an hour into the piece, possibly a little bit more, but not much more, quite honestly. Although I have walked away from it once or twice and just let it go. Here I'm looking for my source of power, and I decided I needed some kind of sense of glowing, you know, rocket ship stuff, and that looked like as good a place as any. It's almost cylindrical looking shape, so in it went. And then just a little glow around it. This is an airbrush now. It's nothing fancy. Just to suggest that there's something propelling this guy. You have to have something moving things. And then I thought about putting some flanges on this, what is potentially a afterburner, I guess you'd call it. And I like that look. And I remember thinking, well, it's great, but it doesn't look quite right. So I made sure there was an overlap there between the flanges to this and the glowing part. So it was fairly clear in my mind that this was not, you know, just a sort of a painted embellishment on the ship. It was actually something that was making things happen. And to reinforce that, I put these very slightly curved lines in, Didn't like them, took a few other things out, just doing everything I can to get as much clarity without overpainting too much, without doing too much. And you know, I like that arrow down below, so I put another arrow here which says, in my mind, in the print that we can't read, don't stand behind this, or something like that, or fuel port, or who knows what it says in this alien language. Cleaning and cleaning and cleaning. You know, you do a crummy line, it can be real disappointment, and so you try to make it a little bit better. And now I've decided to put some kind of insignia, as I recall. So I'm typing in red or orange. Finding a font, and apparently this guy has a 12-volt battery in it somewhere, so everybody needed to know that. And I'm putting it in place, and then what I'll do is I'll transform that so that it follows the curves of the object. Looks like I never did deal with the background. Maybe I liked it at the time. I did this quite a long time ago. So I'm just pushing it around with the warp tool so it looks like it fits there. Drop the opacity down so it doesn't look too separate from the machine. Erase it back a little in places, not everywhere, so it looks like it belongs there. And I'm pretty much done. I've got about an hour and a half into this thing. I'm trying a few layers. Title it, sign it, we're good to go. Good luck, guys.